It's time for another doodle session featuring a fountain pen and ink pairing of my choosing. All of these items have appeared in previous videos, so there won't be any in-depth analyses on that front. But I'll talk a bit about the process and a lot about what was going through my head at the time. Sounds scary? Don't worry. I've been doing this for a while now, and despite some mysterious robocalls lately, no one's tried to shut me down yet. Hi, I'm Irene, and this is Inkworks. Sorta thinking about making that opening disclaimer a regular thing. You know, for the newcomers. What do you think? I figured if it's presented with a soft, soothing voice, viewers will be lulled into sticking around till the end, and not even noticing how that soft, soothing voice gets more and more strained as 5 minutes becomes 10, then 15. Which is unsettling because eventually it starts to sound like I'm having a mini breakdown. So I'll just say it now. I'm fine. This is the 6th ink doodle in this notebook, and it differs from the others in a couple of ways. One, it wasn't impromptu. A layout was sketched out in thumbnail form just before recording. And 2, well, I'll explain when we get to that point later on. By the way, this is an A6 size Midori MD notebook. It does not come with a cork cover. You have to know a skilled maker who's kind enough to give you one. Or I guess you could learn to make it yourself. But in my case, that would mean clearing off the dining table, hauling out the Hello Kitty sewing machine, rereading the instructions because they never stick for some reason, scrounging up the materials, then staring at the setup for the next 2 weeks before maybe or maybe not proceeding. And I just can't. So I warned the first-timers, but I neglected to acknowledge returning viewers. Welcome, and thanks for coming back for more. I know very well you could be watching My Dandelion Diaries right now, where you might actually learn something. Oops. Soft, soothing voice. Soft, soothing voice. That's supposed to be a Jeannie bottle in the lower right. It's closer to the I Dream of Jeannie style than the Aladdin sort. I Dream of Jeannie was on my mind because I'd recently watched a video from Marina Coates where she shared her CG tour through Major Nelson's house. Some context here. Yes, as a child, I sometimes watched reruns of the show. No, I wasn't a fan. Personally, I find the premise problematic. A young woman living in servitude with a jerk who constantly orders her around. Yeah, no. But I love the animated opening sequence. And who could resist that catchy theme tune? But the main thing is, I'm a floor plan nut. Sure, TV houses are wonky, understandably so, since they are designed for filming, not living. But that gets my creativity flowing with ideas on how to make them livable. On a related note, one of my favorite blogs is Hooked on Houses. It's been around for about 15 years and features film and TV houses, both real and set. I discovered the site while searching for information about the Victorian house in the 1998 movie Practical Magic. The post there included many stills showcasing the fabulous set design. I've been going back periodically ever since. Having grown up in an old house built around 1910, I'm a bit obsessed with them. Ours was small and weirdly configured, but I always dreamed about renovating it, which is probably why I used to watch This Old House and HGTV. I've actually recreated my old house in The Sims several times. Yeah, there's the whole game mode where you live your Sims' lives, working, playing, loving, even dying. But I just build house after house after house, many without roofs, because roofs have always given me trouble. Never mind that I learned about pitch levels and whatnot in drafting class, but that was nearly 40 years ago, and I didn't thoroughly understand it then either. Thankfully, in The Sims, there are no negative consequences to being roofless, not like in real life. This platinum PREFOUNTE is one of my go-to fountain pens. Its medium nib writes smoothly and consistently. Currently, I simply refill the cartridge that came with it, but I do want to get a proper converter. I believe Platinum's converter is proprietary, which means you can't attach just any old thing. They aren't the only company to do that. Lamy, Pilot, and a few other brands do it too. It does get confusing, which is why I've bookmarked a converter compatibility guide on Goldspot Pen's website. By the way, there are links in the description for this and some other things I've mentioned. The blister packaging for the Platinum PREFOUNTE mentions a slip and seal cap feature. It supposedly prevents the ink from drying out for up to a year of disuse. I'm not hardcore enough to put that claim to the test, but I can say that several weeks have gone by between uses, and this pen has written immediately and delightfully every time. Good job, Platinum. In my collection, there are a couple of inks so pale that I would only use them for arting, not for writing. Those are Visconti's The Novel Reader and Birmingham Pen Company's Tea Berry Ice Cream. This Fuyu-Gaki isn't that pale, so I was surprised to see such little color in the washes. But that's not a bad thing. It just indicates it's more staining than I expected. Wait, more staining or less staining? And why can't I figure that out? I'm fine. Anyway, the color in the washes is pink, which was the same color of my left hand after a pen filling mishap while prepping for this session. Undiluted applications are more orange than pink. On paper, I mean, not skin. Although it's probably the same on skin. The point is, depending on lighting, it can have a peach or salmon-like hue, or a winter persimmon, which is what Fuyu-Gaki supposedly means. But I can research as easily as the next baka, and according to Google's free and totally reliable translation feature, Fuyu-Gaki translates to "winter is coming." Well, color me confused. So I Google translated both Fuyu and Gaki individually. As suspected, Fuyu means winter, but apparently Gaki means brat? At that point, I was pulling my hair and muttering, "What is going on with your color names, Pilot?" So I switched to a reverse translation, and voila, persimmon is actually cocky with a K. Two Ks. Mystery solved. Years of watching amateur sleuths and private detectives have finally paid off. Sorta. By the way, I can't hear the word salmon without flashing back 25 years. It was lunch at Anthony's Homeport restaurant in Olympia. I'd ordered the ponzu salmon bowl, and yeah, it was tasty. But I was quietly seething over the perceived lack of value. I paid how much for this skimpy serving? And if you've never seen an introvert seethe, well, let me just say, we keep things bottled up way too long until, out of the blue, the littlest thing will poke the bear and all heck lets loose. Just saying. Anthony's escaped my wrath that day, but having unloaded to you all, I now feel so much better. Remember way back when I left you hanging about how this doodle differed from the others? Well, the second difference is that I used a brush to create subtle washes and to add fully saturated strokes for emphasis. Never mind that my original purpose with this series was to demonstrate how fountain pens work in an art application. I just went ahead and obliterated most of the nib work. Yeah, I got carried away. Like that time in my 20s when I had to bring a dish to Thanksgiving dinner. I couldn't choose between stovetop stuffing or rice-a-roni, so I combined both into one dish. It was a clumpy, carby mess, and one of my biggest food regrets. Going forward, not sure if I'll stick to the self-imposed rules for this notebook. I mean, each doodle was supposed to be in one color, but I broke that rule a couple of months ago. It doesn't matter. There are worse things than shaking up one's art practices, and I've spent too much time fiddle-faddling over it. Fiddle-faddle. It's a tasty snack, similar to poppycock and Crunch and Munch, but I remember the OG version, Cracker Jack. Popcorn and peanuts combined with a syrupy coating, packaged in a box with a surprise toy inside. That makes it sound like I grew up in the 1920s, waving newspapers with headlines like "Penicillin Discovered." No, the 70s were my child years. Fortunately, we had a neighborhood convenience store that sold candy, bread, milk, soda pop, magazines, and shoelaces. There was even a phone booth and a bus stop in front. 50 cents was enough to get us to run 5 blocks from our house to buy a couple of Cracker Jacks. As an adult, my favorite was Screaming Yellow Zonkers. I expect it was higher in sodium because it satisfied both my sweet and salty cravings. I hadn't found it in years, though, and only recently discovered that's because they were discontinued in 2007. I'm happy to share this doodle session. It's different from the others, and I'm not sure that I care for it. It's like the opposite of insanity, where you keep doing things differently while expecting the same results. Until next time, remember, I'm fine. And stay artsy, my friends.